The year is 1837. The Republic of Texas, forged in the fires of revolution just a year earlier, is a nation clinging to a precarious existence. Its frontier is not a line on a map, but a shifting, violent landscape of opportunity and conflict. This was not an empty wilderness waiting to be tamed. It was the contested heartland of powerful Native American nations. The vast domain known as the Comanchería stretched across much of north, central, and west Texas, a formidable barrier to Anglo expansion. In this crucible of cultures, the primary defense of the fledgling republic was not a standing army, but an ad hoc collection of citizen soldiers known as the Texas Rangers. These were not the uniformed lawmen of Hollywood legend, but mounted volunteers and Minutemen who provided their own horses, weapons, and supplies, mustering for short terms to protect settlements and survey new lands. Their very presence often brought them into direct, brutal conflict with the indigenous inhabitants, like the Kichai people, who fiercely resisted the encroachment on their ancestral territories. The political landscape was as volatile as the frontier itself. The government, under President Sam Houston, officially favored a policy of diplomacy and treaties, but on the ground, far from the capital, the reality was a cycle of raid and reprisal. It was in this tense environment that a small company of rangers embarked on a punitive expedition in the fall of 1837. It was a mission that began with a clear objective but would descend into a cascade of insubordination, reckless violence, and tactical blunders, culminating in a near total disaster at a place the Kichai called the Stone Houses. Today we uncovered the forgotten story of this doomed expedition, a bloody chapter in the annals of the Texas Rangers that reveals the brutal complexities of the Texas frontier. In October 1837, the cycle of violence flared up once again. Following a series of raids on settlements near Fort Smith on the Little River, a company of Texas Rangers was mustered to retaliate. Their mission was straightforward: pursue the Kichai raiders, punish them, and recover stolen horses. Command of the roughly 65-man company was given to Captain William M. Eastland. For weeks, the Rangers tracked the Kichai north, deep into contested territory, but as the trail grew cold, dissension grew hot. On November 1st, near the headwaters of Pecan Bayou, the fragile command structure of the volunteer force snapped. A heated quarrel erupted between Captain Eastland and his subordinate, Lieutenant A.B. Van Bentenhuizen. The specific cause of the dispute has been lost to history, but its consequences were immediate and catastrophic. In a formal military unit, a subordinate officer challenging his commander would face a court-martial for mutiny. But the early Texas Rangers were not a formal military. They were a volunteer militia where loyalty was often personal rather than institutional. Men followed leaders they trusted, and in that moment, a portion of the company lost faith in Eastland. Lieutenant Van Bentenhuizen, followed by 17 of his men, broke away from the main command, determined to continue the pursuit on their own terms. This schism created a small, unauthorized detachment, now operating with just 18 men, deep in a hostile land and dangerously overconfident in their abilities. Van Bentenhuizen led his small party north, picking up the Kichai Trail again and following it toward the Brazos River. The farther they rode, the more isolated they became, a tiny island of Texan aggression in a vast sea of native territory. This landscape was a complex tapestry of shifting allegiances. Not every Indian was an enemy, and mistaking a neutral or allied party for a hostile one could have deadly consequences. The Texans were about to learn this lesson the hard way. On November 3rd, near the future site of Fort Belknap, the Rangers stumbled upon a small band of Cherokee and Delaware Indians. With them was a Kichai man, serving as their guide. In a rash and strategically senseless act, the Rangers killed the Kichai guide. They spared the others after they vehemently professed their friendship with the Texans. This single killing transformed their mission. They were no longer just pursuing raiders. They had committed an act of aggression that would alert every native band in the region that a hostile Texan party was in their midst. A week later, on November 10th, the Rangers finally found their quarry, a large Kichai village. The Kichai, no longer running, were now primed for a fight. Also present were some of the same Cherokee and Delaware Indians from the earlier encounter, attempting to act as peace agents and mediate the conflict before it exploded. But any hope for a peaceful resolution was shattered by the actions of one man. A ranger named Felix McCluskey, ignoring the delicate negotiations, charged a Kichai warrior and killed him. When his comrades reprimanded him for this reckless act, McCluskey gave an infamous reply that would seal the fate of the entire detachment. He declared that he would kill any Injun for a plug of tobacco, and to prove his point, he held up a plug he had just looted from the dead man's body. This was the point of no return. McCluskey's brutal act and defiant words were an unforgivable insult, a violation of the truce that the peace agents were trying to broker. For the Kichai, this was not merely a murder, but a profound act of disrespect that demanded a violent response. The battle took its name from the terrain, 3 distinctive stone mounds that rose from the prairie near modern-day Windthorst, Texas. To the local tribes, these formations resembled houses or teepees and served as a well-known landmark. It was here, on November 10, 1837, that the Kichai unleashed their fury. Outnumbered nearly 10-1, with an estimated 150 Kichai warriors descending upon them, the 18 Rangers knew their horses would be a liability in a pitched battle. They dismounted, abandoning their primary tactical advantage, mobility, and took cover in a shallow ravine, preparing to make a stand. The Kichai tactics were far from the undisciplined chaos often depicted in frontier lore. Their initial charge was fierce, and in the opening moments, their war chief was shot and killed. A lesser force might have broken and fled, but the Kichai demonstrated remarkable command and control. They withdrew in an orderly fashion, quickly elected a new leader, and resumed their attack. For 2 hours, they pressed the Rangers' position, engaging in brutal, close-quarters combat. When it became clear that direct assaults could not dislodge the well-protected Texans, the Kichai adapted, turning the environment itself into a weapon. They set fire to the dry prairie grass surrounding the ravine, a sophisticated tactic designed to either burn the Rangers out or force them into the open. Choking in the thick smoke and facing incineration, the Rangers' position became untenable. Their only option was a desperate final charge. On foot, they burst through the wall of smoke and flame directly into the waiting lines of Kichai warriors, hoping to break through and escape into the woods. It was a chaotic, bloody flight for survival. The cost of the Rangers' indiscipline was staggering. 4 men were killed in the ravine during the 2-hour siege. 6 more were cut down during the desperate charge through the fire, bringing the total number of dead to 10. For a command of only 18 men, this represented a casualty rate of over 55%. For the 8 survivors, the battle was over, but the ordeal was not. They had lost everything: their horses, their equipment, and over half their comrades. They now faced a grueling 17-day march on foot, covering some 150 miles through hostile territory back to the nearest settlements on the Sabine River, which they finally reached on November 27th. Their survival was a testament to their endurance, but it could not mask the totality of their defeat. The Battle of Stonehouses was a tactical and strategic disaster for the Texas Rangers, yet it remains a little-known footnote in the state's bloody frontier history. It was quickly overshadowed by the larger, more aggressive campaigns that would be launched under President Mirabeau B. Lamar's administration, like Colonel John H. Moore's infamous San Saba fight in 1839 and his successful Colorado River campaign in 1840. The memory of the battle is as contested as the land on which it was fought. To this day, historical markers commemorating the event stand in 2 different counties, Archer and Wise, a testament to how frontier history was often recorded through fragmented memories and local lore, rather than precise official reports. This ambiguity has contributed to the battle's obscurity. Triumphant histories, like those written by J.W. Wilberger, tended to focus on Texan victories, glossing over or forgetting defeats, especially those precipitated by the Rangers' own recklessness. Ultimately, the Battle of Stone Houses serves as a perfect microcosm of the Texas Indian Wars. It was a conflict born from a cycle of raid and retaliation, undermined by a fragile command structure and ignited by a single act of settler aggression. It demonstrated the sophisticated and adaptable tactics of native warriors and laid bare the deadly consequences of indiscipline and arrogance on the frontier. It's a cautionary tale, a reminder that in the violent birth of Texas, victory was never guaranteed and defeat was often just one reckless act away.